You were shitting all over me last week about like that video that I didn't watch regarding Karl Jobst, and I did. You know what? I was like, you know what? I'm gonna be nice because I forced you to watch the Wall-E movie, which is like an hour and a half. So you trying to force me to watch a 52-minute video is really not that bad. So I watched the video, and you know what? I feel vindicated. Not by anyone else, by the way, because we actually had, so normally our highlights that aren't shorts don't get that many views, but occasionally when it's a relevant topic, we get some views. We had one comment because someone actually watched our video and they said, wow, the person you're talking to is an idiot. They should have watched the Karl Jobst video. So you were vindicated there.
Oh.
Yeah. But first of all, fuck you. I'm not an idiot because I was actually arguing 100% what I know to be true. However, like, yeah, it was a different argument than the Karl Jobst video was saying. So I was like arguing a parallel point while like Dana was apparently taking it out. First of all, can I just say, as I was watching this video, I was like remembering our conversation, like, oh, this piece of shit. He's just literally rehashing the video. You told me the entire video in debate form.
Yeah, because I had
me.
to explain what the
Okay?
fucking video was, because that was the
Okay.
topic at hand. Our topic was literally the video and everything going with Wata, so I had to explain what happened. It was,
To
like,
be fair,
super...
I started with Wada. I will say that much, but I like immediately went on a different tangent, and I feel like I didn't articulate what the tangent I was trying to say was. And yes, this was addressed in the Wada Games video by Karl Jobst. However, I feel like it was not dressed fairly. So the video specifically was on Wada Games and their conspiracy and
It's a
how
good
they've
video.
existed. It was a pretty good video, I'll admit that. I generally don't dislike Karl Jobst videos, but I always feel like there is a little bit of lacking information because I'm closer to these subjects than some of the people actually watching. I don't think that like what you were saying last week was bad. Like, yes, Wada Games, they've existed since the coin age in like different forms, and then like they've pretty much ruined every single collectible market up until now their new target video games. However, while I 100% agree with everything you were saying about the new game market and the graded market, I feel like this has less of an impact on the ungraded and pretty much like loose market. And I will say,
Well, that's what
Karl-
I was saying, though. I said this is only... You were saying that, like, that loose... the playability of game is what is affecting the prices, and that was the argument we were having.
Okay, so yeah, the thing is, I was trying to make a point, but like I did not frame it in a great way, and that there's two separate groups of people. You were talking a lot about the investment class getting into video game purchasing and video game collecting and them ruining the market. And like there is a completely different investment class versus the graded market and the market of people who are actually video game collecting. And the people who are video game
absolutely.
collecting 100% care how a game works and therefore don't really care about like a graded game or a game that you actually cannot put into a console. Like and when I actually buy a game, if I'm not able to play it, I literally return it.
Oh, absolutely. So, like, I guess more so my argument was based on the layman, the people that aren't in either class, the people that see it as an investment who maybe aren't as knowledgeable, that start jumping on ungraded and just loose copies of games. Hence why you start seeing listings for, like, Mario 64 immediately after that went for $1 million. Just loose copies up on eBay for like $500 next to $20 copies, and they end up selling, like things like that.
So I'm going to completely disagree in that like the layman is not a neutral class. The layman is the investor class because like if you are all a video game collector, you are not a layman. Like the layman is the person who joins the speculative market.
Correct. Like people that don't have any interest or knowledge on it trying to invest. There's people who do research and invest based on research. And then there's the people that just see an article and go, ooh, that's cool, I buy it. And it's the same problem we had in cards over the past 2 years, but cards have completely crashed down to price because all those people are no longer in the hobby.
Yeah, so I'm going to keep this short because we had a half an hour conversation, which I thought was actually a pretty good debate. I'm proud of myself.
I liked it a lot. It was
for
fun.
keeping my own, okay? I'm going to jack myself off here. But I'm just going to say... Fuck, what was I going to say?
Sam, I'm proud of you. That's
Okay.
all I'm going to say.
I'm going to jack myself off here. Fuck, I forgot everything I was going to say. I'm just going to say that I think we're both right in that, like, I really don't think that this affects the video game collectors market. I feel like people in the video game community care a lot more about playability than a lot of the things that investors generally care about, like box art. Like, to the point where I think that, like, even though he tried to make this claim, Karl Jobst, right at the end of the video, about 2 minutes before the video ended, like I literally documented when it happened. It was 2 minutes before. He's like, and this isn't just a problem for investors. The actual price of video games has gone up 33% in the last 2 years. And I'm like, you know what? I mean, like, that is necessarily true. But the fact that you put this in at the end not only makes me think that you didn't really do enough research on this, or you think you have a shoddy argument. And B, I feel like by putting it there, it kind of like misplaces the blame. First of all, like the video game market has been rapidly increasing in price from a collector standpoint, just due to the fact that like with a limited supply item, like games that are relatively popular will become rapidly increasing in price. Like the video mentioned like the Spider-Man for Atari 2600.
Yeah, that was a really good example.
Yeah, the thing is, Atari 2600 games, even though they don't make Atari 2600 games anymore, there were so many made, and there just isn't necessarily that much demand because these games suck objectively, that like, yeah, even because of that, the market is still flooded. Like you have a game though, like Super Mario World for the SNES, eventually you're going to run out of copies, even though the game was plenty copies made, just due to the fact that like a lot of people love that game. They're actually actively trying to find it. So like,
you want something that's actually funny though? Like this actually goes back to the game we played. There's only 100,000 sales of Psychonauts. So, I mean,
yeah, but this game is like old. Like Nintendo is a weird example in that like pretty much every single game is a physical copy up until like very recently, like up until like Wii, after the Wii. Like PlayStation 1 games, like people generally care more, or they don't care enough about physical copies. Really, any disc-based console before like
I mean, to be honest, I think I care about a lot of disc stuff, but like it's so hard to find disc-based games because most people threw away the cases and put them in like those little flip books. You remember those flip books that we used to put CDs in?
Yeah,
so most people did. Most people used to do that with PlayStation games. So it's like really hard to find like cases. It's the same reason why Saturn games are like you can never find a fucking case. They're always shattered.
Actually, I'm not sure I agree with that because Saturn cases were like legitimately heavy duty cases. Just,
excuse me, not Saturn. I'm thinking Sega CD.
Yeah, Sega CD is, and any add-on for the Genesis is like an insane thing. Like any add-on for any console is like impossible. Like the Jaguar CD, impossible to find any game for it. But yeah, that and the fact that like I own a copy of Sonic Adventure, it has scratched the shit and will never play again.
Like, I don't think either of us disagree on either. I think we both agree with each other's opinions on the subject. I was just more so pointing out like how fucking shitty Wata and Heritage auctions are. I think they're fucking scum of the earth. Fuck both of them.
Yeah, I want like this is someone single-handedly trying to ruin an entire hobby. But yeah, I just want to say one thing. He insinuated because of the investment class, the retro gaming community in general was paying higher prices for games. I completely disagree for that. One, it is a relatively alarming trend due to the fact that like retro game collectors are paying more and more each year, but that's one, due to scarcity, and two, to the like larger increase in demand for the hobby. But two, I also think that COVID played a large part in this, in that like people are getting into a hobby again, not necessarily from a collecting standpoint, but just because they have nostalgia for it.
Well,
like,
but are they getting into it because of the investment class jumping into it, so they want to jump into the hobby, and more people that were previously not in the hobby are getting into it because of that? Because this is a parallel of what exactly happened to cards right before COVID. Everything shot up like 400%. You know, I was selling base set Charizards for $1,800, but now I can sell that same card for $250. You know, as everybody got out of the hobby after the quote unquote hype from all these articles and shit happen. So that's just like, I guess that's where I'm coming from, because I've personally experienced it in a very similar hobby that has problems with grading, speculation, investments, and so on and so forth. So that's just my background on it.
But you can't argue that there was a massive increase in people interested in Pokemon and actual physical media because of the pandemic and because they weren't able to actually like see people.
No. It was more so because, well, I would say argue, because every other card game did not do well. But the difference with Pokemon is that you don't need other people to collect Pokemon cards. Like, that's not something you sit in front of them and play a game. Like, you can just collect your cards and do whatever. That, and mostly Pokemon went up because of, like, you know, shitheads like Logan Paul, you know, Steve Aoki, and all the other super popular people got into the hobby.
Well, I would argue that like video games, especially single player games, especially for the SNES, definitely had an increase just due to the pandemic, people staying at home. Like I could say it's both. Yeah, there is. I'm not going to say that like investment in video games like didn't upshoot the price a little bit, but I think that the Karl Jobst video like tried to make the conclusion that like this was the cause of the upshoot in like video game pricing, like to the extreme that it has.
If that's the case, if that's the case that they made the point to say it was the sole reason, I would completely disagree. I would say it's definitely a contributing reason, maybe not even a majority reason, but I definitely think it is a reason the prices went up. So
yeah, I as a video game retro collector, like honestly, like I have hundreds of games in my collection, so like I feel like I have
sold
enough
a couple
authority.
Of my games.
Yeah, get fucked, stupid idiot. Oh,
dude, I sold my Fire and Ice. I paid $10 for. I sold it for $200.
Get fucked, idiot! You're gonna sell that for $40,000 in the future because of Wata Games. Oh,
I'm about to rub my nipples on camera.
Okay, well, anyway, as a video game collector, as someone who actually has authority in the subject, I feel like it is not a super big concern for those trying to make large collections. It is a super big concern, though, if you are interested in complete in box or newer games, which you shouldn't be if you're trying to amass a collection. That is literally just making your life miserable. You should look for working games. However, I will say that in the very rare case of a extremely rare video game, so we're talking about like Star Fox Weekend, Max, Donkey Kong competition cards. Those video games,
like those are like they're like what 20, 30 copies of that shit made.
Yeah,
those are some of the most expensive games made.
Those will shoot up in price just due to the fact that like even though they're not in box, they have the ability to be graded on like an actual scale that people care about. Like the example that they used before was Spider-Man for the Atari. That being graded loose wouldn't matter at all at this point. Like you grade your copy of Star Fox regular loose, it's like okay, a 9.6. No one gives a shit because it doesn't have the box.
But if you have that Star Fox in the box with like the the tournament edition weekend whatever, that's Star Fox big fucking
Super
money.
Weekend. Yeah, so like if you don't have the extremely rare versions of the game that were already expensive, then you're screwed. However, if you're like me and you do,
I hate to keep bringing it back to Pokemon. That's basically what happened with our hobby. Is that grading got so insane because people were sending in like 50 copies of like $2 cards, so they just got overran, and the market just got completely fucked because everybody was just submitting things that were worthless.
I have a green energy card, graded 9.8.
I got my dick in my hand. Fuck you.
We should do a dick grading service. Just mold plastic over people's penises.
It's called a grinder. What's this thing you sent about a message on eBay? This actually looks kind of tangential to what we were just talking about.
Oh, okay. I completely forgot about that. Yeah. So I will say, though, that the Wata Games is evil, but it's gotten to a point where the mentality is if you have games, you should be becoming rich off them. Like, Wata Games has this like evil seed that's like implanting themselves in collectors. So there was someone in the video game collecting community that like put a price of a complete in box game on eBay. I think they listed it like $250 when it normally sells for $270. And a fellow seller was like, "Hey, I just noticed you listed this for $250. I personally think that you listed this for too low. I would appreciate it if you listed this for $270 instead of $250 because it's not worth the current price that you're making it." And I can find the actual person who sent this.
He actually won't say what game it is.
Oh, he won't say. Yeah, it actually makes sense because they don't
it's such a limited game. It's gonna link them to too many people.
Yeah. So the issue is the game has less than 5,000 copies, and like fellow sellers are trying to get rich. So first of all, this is illegal. I feel like that's what people are saying in the comments,
Absolutely.
And therefore I'm a lawyer now because I read some comments. This is illegal, and if I was I
read Reddit for 2 hours a day. I'm basically a lawyer.
Yeah, exactly. So this is wrong 100%, but like more importantly, this is ruining the video game hobby. Like people are literally, they're no longer trying to just like buy and sell and trade copies of games. And like obviously if you're in a situation where you have a rare game,
every
hobby
money. Has become commercialized like this. This is basically every hobby. Like people enjoy it, but like you wouldn't be able to enjoy it unless there are people like this making money off of it to, have things.
True. I mean, like every single hobby, like of course, like things have value, and if something is rare, you like are able to make a game priced at a certain point. But like I don't think that this is something that really has happened in the previous world of game. Like maybe at a smaller scale, but I feel like the mentality now is like we are no longer selling games just because like there was a game collecting business, but like we are no longer selling games to just like make a living. We are selling games to get rich, baby. We need to get this price
it happens
up.
in every single hobby though. Like I guess it's just because from any collectible, like it happened in coins, it happened in cards, it's happening to video games. I mean, you could go down the list of things that people collect, and eventually people are going to jump into it. It got really bad with old school video games because I remember you remember when we used to just go to like different Craigslist, different stores, like trying to get collections just to collect old school video games. And then we saw like all these people jumping into the hobby to make money who knew nothing about it and just saw it as a money opportunity. So it's not like this is like a new thing. This is something that's been happening for a while and will happen to any hobby that is like valuable.
True. I'm just hoping that anyone who's actually interested in the hobby like gets into it now and like tries the. There will be a crash, but I feel like even after the crash, it's going to be a relatively elevated price, and I feel like anyone that wants to be in the hobby should get in sooner rather than later. That's my opinion.
That's what sucks about collectibles that have a finite supply. It's like 10 years from now, like people can't, like you're kind of just doing the hobby with people who have it and have been doing it, and it's like you're kind of just playing with yourself because no one else can afford to get into the hobby. This really sucks.
Yeah,
because I think collecting old school video games is super fun. Like these cartridges, these games, like they look fucking dope and they're super fun to play like in a physical way, and it's just something that future generations may not be able to enjoy.
Well, I'm gonna like sit on my ivory tower of video games and like be a baller, okay?